Hey, historians, welcome back. This is an exciting lecture. I think you're going to love it. It's called What is Teaming? And my main question is, are there simple strategies that you can use to make groups more effective? We all are involved with groups throughout our lives, whether they be related to sports teams or choirs or school groups or work groups. And who doesn't need to be more effective in a group because we spend so much time in them, right? And many of us have some bad experiences with groups as well because maybe some people didn't do as much as they were supposed to, or there were conflicts, or maybe you felt you weren't heard. And so this presentation really is about having more effective groups, more effective teams, how to be a leader in one of those teams, facilitate that kind of work, or to be a good team member. And it's just important in life to know how to work in teams. A good college subject, I would say. But also one that's especially important for design thinking, which is our overall frame for this part of our course. And in design thinking, when you're doing group work, it's really important that you function well together. That's one of the key things because you're looking for a lot of great ideas and diverse ideas, okay? So yeah, let's chat about this. We're going to look at these same 5 design stages again. Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. This is the 5-step process that we're teaching in this course and that we're using at PLU. And what we're going to focus on now is not the process steps, but the people involved in the steps. And so thinking about what we do each step of the way. We are so focused on teams and groups because we have recognized that employers are looking for this skill. And it's something that sometimes in colleges we haven't always taught. Sometimes in colleges we've had these lecture courses where we've talked about fascinating subjects, and we've had people go off into the library and read books and write essays. And in the sciences, a computer science student might go and be inspired by an assignment in a data structures class and go and write these programs and turn them in. But some of that work, although it's been important, hasn't involved a group work, right? And yet employers are telling us they want that. In a recent study put together by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, Forbes magazine, and the National Association of Colleges and Employers, group working well on diverse teams was actually the #1 thing that employers wanted from college graduates, regardless of major. And so let's look at that for a second. They want people to work well on teams. As a college student, you need to learn how to work well on teams, and then you need to work well in diverse teams. Diversity has become really the mantra here because if you can work with other types of people and if you can listen to other types of ideas, then you will be really enriched by that, and the products and the initiatives and the ideas that you have will be enriched by that. So in terms of diverse, we're talking about gender diversity and ethnicity and national identity, religion, cultural identity, all these things. Those are all good. And they're good when people feel also that they can represent those ideas or speak from those positions in a sense of psychological safety. So that's a really important thing, really important for design thinking. Some of these other items are pretty great too. I mean, #2, make decisions and solve problems. That's something we're working on with innovation studies, and this is why we came up with this list and put it on our innovation website, because we're trying to teach people to solve problems together, communicate well together, organize work, use computers and technology, influence others, create and see connections, and be able to tell stories, maximizing stories, narratives about why something should happen. Okay, so in all of these areas, I just wanted to highlight that teams are important. Teams are important for the work we do. And that's a little bit different than we sometimes imagine when we think of the world of work. A lot of us think we're going to graduate from PLU, an awesome college, go out into the workforce, and be involved in some sort of division of labor principle where we work in an organization, everyone does their own thing. In a assembly line type of scheme like we see here in the fabulous Tillamook Cheese Factory in beautiful Oregon, people are making butter and sour cream and cheese and ice cream, and they're doing it by each doing their own part on an assembly line. So the assembly line moves along and everyone does their own part. And we see that also in corporations where there are these org charts, right, that show everyone with their own job. And everyone has their job, and the thought is that if everyone does their job and stays in their box, then eventually the work will get done, because people have different areas of responsibility. All right, so that is a common thing you see in the world of work. A company like Google has approached teaming in a very different way, and they created this, kind of whimsical little chart to show team members and to indicate that there are some things that they focus on. Rather than having everyone do their own thing in a group, they want people to work together. How do they do that? And the first thing they emphasize is psychological safety. And there's another short video that you'll see below this one in this lesson that emphasizes psychological safety. Basically, they say team members need to feel safe with each other. When you're having diverse points of view represented, when you have people that are quite different from each other, you need to respect each other, feel safe with each other, be able to take risks and be vulnerable in front of each other. So that may seem like a touchy-feely emotional thing, but it's really, really important. The flip side of that is feeling like someone is always going to attack your idea. In fact, one of the big no-nos in group work is having someone constantly play the devil's advocate. The devil's advocate, a person who says, that sounds good, but maybe we should be careful because of, right? And of course, there are reasons that some ideas are better than others. And there will be a time in the innovation process, usually more in the prototype and test phase, when you are ready to kind of say a certain idea maybe has some drawbacks, right? But that is a really bad news, and it works against psychological safety in the early stages of teaming and of defining a problem and reaching out with empathy and so on. So you'll think about that in a second video that's coming. It's very short, actually. Some of these other attributes, dependability, and when you do group work in this class, I mean, everyone has to know that everyone's in, right? You've paid for this course, you've signed up for it, you're doing a group project. Everyone has to be dependable. They have to be there, have to be there on time. You have to meet expectations. If you have people that aren't doing that, you break the group, right? You break it by lowering expectations and sending a message that you're not interested in other people. You're not able to do this because of X, Y, and Z, right? So that's just that is one way that a group will become less functional. And a leader of the group, or an instructor in my case, he needs to hold people accountable so that they build those teams. And at a place like Google, if you're not willing to be dependable, then you wouldn't be on that team. You would be let go, right? In a university setting, we're all kind of trying on these roles and doing a lot of other things at the same time. Sometimes there are reasons why a person can't make it, etc. But dependability is rated really highly by companies like Google. Having structure, an understanding of what your role is, what you're supposed to do, what the goals are, very important. Meaning, number 4, relates to start with why, that you feel like you have a meaning, there's a reason for what you're doing, and there's an identity in your organization. So you feel like what you're doing, the sacrifice you make to the group, is worth it because of some higher purpose. And that relates to number 5, which is impact, that team members feel that their individual work matters and will create change. So with design thinking, usually you're trying to change something. I mean, we've got Tim Brown's Change by Design here, right? We're trying to change. And to change, we're trying to make things better. And if you get people in a group or a social movement and they think that change is going to happen and it'll be meaningful, then they'll feel great about their work. So another way to think about groups is to look at images of them. Here's a picture of a Google group that they're showing in one of their teamwork slides. And they're trying to model here a sense of diversity, that people are of different ethnic backgrounds. It looks like there's different genders that are represented there as well. And people are all sitting upright, leaning forward, interested in each other's work. The posture of good group members would be that when one person speaks, everyone else looks at them and listens. If you're the leader of a group, you need to put down your phone, close your laptop, look a person right in the eye, and hear what they're having to say. And this is important in the empathy or empathize stage. You need to be able to listen and have empathy to understand what people are saying, all right? I have a joke here about coffee. It seems like there's only 4 coffee cups. Why only 4? Why 4 black coffees? What's maybe not in this group, I've kind of noticed over time, is age diversity. Maybe the guy wearing glasses in the bottom of this middle of the screen, he might be a little bit older. I think I maybe see a little gray stubble on his beard, maybe. But the other people look pretty young. And for a Google or a high-tech company, that is something they're working against. It's a challenge for them. they have a lot of people between 25 and 35 working there. And that creates a kind of a younger person mentality that sometimes seems advantageous. People are earlier in their careers. They might be willing to work longer. They might not have families. But the downside is that then you lose that diverse point of view. So you don't have older people. And when their product, like Google's search engines, if that's used by a wide range of ages, then you're going to have a problem. You're always going to be guessing about what an older person might want. Someone's going to be forced to say, my mom or my grandma does this. And it's better to have a person of that age group speak for themselves. Google, in another area of their website, had this, which is not a diverse group. All these male little icon figures here are all the same. They have the same ethnicity. They have the same haircut. They have the same glasses, the same computers. They're the same. And this resonates with me because I worked at Microsoft and we had a lot of young high-tech people. I was one of them, right in there, mostly male, mostly coming from the West Coast, mostly white, and mostly sort of having a similar educational background. And so it kind of created a sense of camaraderie for some of us, but also kind of a groupthink that we really now are working as hard as we can to kind of change in these high-tech environments. This is another Microsoft slide. In the present, Microsoft says, hey, look at how diverse our teams are. One way to show diversity is to have illustrated images, right? Not photos, because those are often models, but just an illustration. So they're illustrative people. Ethnicity then becomes somewhat vague, and so does age. So this seems to be a mixture of men and women. Look, we have an older guy on the right. He's limber enough to move his leg, although maybe he can't bend his knee. Something he might want to get a little PT about there. Also, a person who's bigger in the middle. He's like, hey, I'm bigger, and I'm right in the middle of it, and I'm having fun. So that's also something that we sometimes don't see in these group photos that look like they're REI snapshots. Groups don't have to have the same personalities. In fact, corporations are very interested in mixing personality types and tracking that, and managers and leaders need to think about personality types. You can build effective teams, people with a range of personality types. Personality types are a real thing, and it's important that everyone is not forced to be some sort of outgoing leader, but in fact, a whole range of people can be very successful in groups. And if you feel like you have been rated on a Myers-Briggs personality test as a certain type of person, that means that you should be aware of that, but there's nothing in that would say that you couldn't be successful in a group. Far from it, right? And a good leader recognizes that and helps people work together. Sometimes groups are not that diverse. Like this group of fabulous women here in the upper right are teachers, and they are excited about their work. They are putting on shirts and smiling and saying, we're here to influence, mentor, coach, and encourage, right? They're excited about it. Yes, it happens to be a group of 5 women because in educational settings, sometimes women have traditionally filled these roles. They have seen other women doing them, and so girls have decided they wanted to do that. And also sometimes there's more flexibility in teaching roles, although the pay could be lower. So it has attracted women who have other responsibilities in the home and things. So this is not a particularly diverse group in terms of age or of gender, but there is ethnic diversity there, and it is just one of the realities of certain types of occupations, right? Even the picture on the left shows just one man there, but a lot of you went to school and had similar setups. So I mean that sometimes that's the way certain fields are, and you just have to work as best you can to kind of recognize the lack of diversity and work to improve it while also understanding what different points of view might be. Sometimes teams involve people that have never met each other, and I just put this slide here to say, look, sometimes people haven't actually met face to face. In an ER setting, you might have doctors, nurses, anesthesiologists, aides, social workers, and other people kind of coming and going, all trained professionally so that they can interact with each other, and they may never have in fact met. Okay, so integrating seamlessly, it really indicates that teaming is not just about a long-term relationship with people, but if people have a sense of safety, they know their roles, They have a greater sense of purpose. They know what their mission is, patient care, right? And they have the resources to do it. They can be super effective even if they don't know each other, because there's a tradition and there's training, right? And so when we build groups for design thinking, I'm just trying to point out some of the characteristics of successful groups, and to encourage you to know that you can create these even if people don't necessarily know each other, but if they have rules and boundaries. And that's what Tim Brown's trying to do with his books. That's what we're trying to do with these classes, is teach you some of the rules and then put them to work. Amy Edmondson is a person I read some. She's at Harvard Business School. She emphasizes teaming, and she talks about teaming being a process of bringing together disparate skills, people from different areas, with the goal of producing something new. So you're not trying to do that group think where everyone has the same output. You're not trying to create an assembly line where everyone's doing something different, but you're trying to create something new by mixing together different individuals. And that's why teaming is so important. The book and the curriculum in this lesson emphasizes that a creative space is also useful to move along these things and to help you in this way. So this slide shows the PLU Innovation Studies Makerspace, and it just shows some of your fellow students at work in that space. It's located in Hinderley Hall, ground floor. It's got room for about 30 people. It's got all movable desks, movable chair, movable whiteboards, movable furniture. It has materials for crafting, for prototyping, for sewing, for electronics, for some light carpentry. We've done robotics stuff in there. We've done music. We've done composition, painting, and lots of design work in there. And it's just a space that is a little bit better than a traditional classroom for that sort of stuff. You can do these sorts of activities in a traditional classroom, and we're going to do some of this stuff in a virtual way in this class, using our computers, which if you have internet and a device to do it, that can be really great too. But traditionally, these maker spaces, these design studios, if you will, give a person a sense of freedom. And yes, in a sense, they're almost like going back to kindergarten. These guys in the middle, in the lower part, third from the left there, they're playing Rocket League. I did this session with them. They're playing Rocket League, which is a fun sort of video game, and they're just creating their own controllers to do it rather than using the keyboard on their laptops, right? And I taught them how to make simple controllers with electronics, and it was really fun. And they're having a blast, right? People are having fun creating something new. It's a space like this is conducive to fun, and that gets your energies flowing, your juices flowing, gives you a chance to be more creative. And during the ideation phase of design thinking, it helps you come up with more ideas. So those are some of my main principles that can be all wrapped up into this slide about the golden rules of teaming. What makes happy teams? When people strive for values and build strong relationships. When people listen deeply to each other and develop a sense of psychological safety. When you recognize within those teams the power of emotions. When you tell stories. When you get people on the same page. When you praise people. When you say great job. That emotional surge is a really powerful thing. You can't be negative in groups. There's a time and place for that, but playing the devil's advocate can become kind of an accepted thing, but is very uncool in groups. As a leader, you need to guide people away from that, and maybe just take them aside afterwards and tell them, hey, going forward, here's why I would prefer you not to do that, right? Also, back channel conversations, gossip outside of the group when one person whispers to the other, or they're even during a meeting and one person's texting about another person in the room. That kind of stuff is toxic for groups. So we just want to explain to people why in design thinking groups that's just not going to be helpful. Every group does not have to be a design thinking group. But design thinking groups, as you're starting to learn, have some special characteristics. And be big with praise, lavish with praise in your groups. Help them be successful, because you can change the world with a well-run group. You really can. All right, that's it. We're looking forward to seeing you in the next phase of this online.